Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the gathering. We're going to get on schedule here with lots of things on our program tonight. So as we sit down, we'll start the introductions. Trying.
All right.
All right. Well, welcome to the 2022 Dean Society Soiree. This is Fred Pletcha, class of 87. Any other 87s here tonight? Oh, very good.
And I'm Janet Cross from the graduate school class of 2000. And we're grateful to welcome you here tonight. We're glad so many of you could join us for what may be many of our first in-person gathering in quite some time.
I don't know how many people had a chance to take advantage of events this morning. Any hands, the HoloLens or any tours of the school? If you had a chance, I hope you enjoyed that. We do have a few events tomorrow. Janet?
Yeah, so how many of you made it to the Dean's Distinguished Lecture this afternoon? Great presentations from some of our graduate school alumni. If you didn't get a chance earlier today, I don't know about the rest of you, but this is my first time in this beautiful building. If you didn't have a chance to be here earlier, there'll be another opportunity tomorrow to get a tour of the lovely, amazing building here tomorrow morning. There are some additional events here for those who have time tomorrow morning to join us in the Health Education Campus, also known as the HEC. One from Dr. Pletcha.
There's an inaugural lecture. Tomorrow we have I think it's at 9 o'clock, the Professionalism and Corporatization, the Changing Organization of Healthcare, brought to us by Dr. Larry Casalino. So we have the Wisdom of Practice Initiative Advisory Board and the University Suburban Health Education Foundation that made this lecture possible here with us tonight.
And of course,
Give us a...
Yes. And always my favorite event tomorrow morning for those who can join us. I think it starts at 11:30. We have a MedConnect networking and mentoring brunch where you'll have an opportunity to mix and mingle with our current medical and graduate school trainees. Always a great opportunity to build connections with those who will follow in our footsteps. So please consider joining us here tomorrow morning if you can.
Right, MedConnect was Jim Fleming's brainchild. It's been a great addition to the interaction between the alums and students. Tomorrow night, reunion dinners are happening at the hotel, Intercontinental Hotel, so your individual class dinners should be present around 6 o'clock, so looking forward to that.
All right, and we know we're the only thing standing between you and dinner, so tonight we have some fabulous dinner music provided by some of our talented medical students. So please enjoy your dinner and enjoy the music, and we'll be back later.
Greetings. I can't resist but telling a story. So I first want to thank our physician musicians. You are outstanding. You are far more talented than we were as medical students back in the day. And the story I have to tell is about our soloist, Natalie Hung. She doesn't know I'm going to say this, but I can remember when I first heard Whitney Houston. I was on the radio and I said, wow, that woman can sing. And another time I remember the first time I was listening to the radio and I heard Adele. And I said, wow, who is that? That woman can sing. So I'm sitting at my table trying to cram this program together with the Liebermans and the reading. And I heard Natalie Hung sing and I said, my God, who is that? And I looked up. So if medical school doesn't work out, we can find you an agent. Thank you for your wonderful, je t'aime. My name is Jim Fleming. I am an orthopedic spine surgeon. I'm from the class of '89 from the best medical school in the country, Case Western Reserve. And I am president of the School of Medicine Alumni Board, soon to be past president. So I welcome this evening. I'd like to introduce our next group of talented students. Da Capella, come on up.
Well, good evening. We are Da Capella. My name is Spencer Kaufman. I'm one of the co-leaders for the group this year. It is our absolute pleasure to be back again this year performing at Dean's Soiree. So the song we're going to be doing tonight is Start a Fire from the movie La La Land, with a twist. So this is a medical parody, and we call it Restart the Heart. But before we perform, one of our members, Pam Pam, is going to introduce this year's Doc Opera.
Hi everyone, my name is Pam Pam. I am one of the vocal directors of Doc Opera this year. Doc Opera is our annual variety show. It features a number of songs, skits, and dances that showcase the many talents of our Case Med students. It is also our largest fundraiser for the student-run health clinic that helps underserved patients in the Cleveland area. Last year we raised over $30,000. So if you're interested in supporting our cause, our financial director, Dalton Bannister, will be in contact later this month. Our show this year is December 10th, so if you're interested, we would love to see you there. Thank you.
I don't know why I keep losing the heartbeats. I don't know if my patient will be fine. I don't know if there's a beat or if I should get the AED. I just know I don't feel so good tonight. I don't know, I freeze up every time. And I've been thinking about some things I'd like to try. And I don't know what I can do, but I wanna save you. I just know I feel so good tonight.
Oh, keep compressing to the rhythm of staying alive. Ba-ba-da-wow. Feel the beat of your heart pounding. Music tonight. Let's restart the heart. Ba-ba-da. Come right back, baby. Let's restart the heart. Ba-ba-da. Ba-ba-da. Baby, let's restart the heart. I just know I feel so good. Don't you know I feel so good? I just know I feel so good tonight.
Now
Let's restart the bow, 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 bow. I don't care if this takes over my whole life. Let's get good and turn into the best you do.
Get the heart pumping now. Can nobody stop us now? I just know I feel so good tonight. Feeling good tonight. Whoa, I just know I feel so good tonight. Feeling good tonight. Whoa. Keep compressing to the rhythm of staying alive. What up, wow. Feel the beat of your heart pumping. Music tonight. Let's restart the heart. Let's restart the heart. Let's restart the heart. I just know I feel so good. Don't you know I feel so good? Don't you know I feel so good?
And I'm feeling good tonight.
Thank you all for joining us both in person and our live stream. And a special thanks to our students who were performed a hello, thank you very much, Docapella. It's now my pleasure to introduce a man who needs no introduction. We're becoming friends with these introductions. Tonight's host is Dean Stan Gerson. In addition to his duties as Dean of the School of Medicine, he is Senior Vice President for Medical Affairs. He is the Director of the NCI-designated Case Comprehensive Cancer Center and Director of the National Center for Regenerative Medicine. He is a Case Western Reserve Distinguished University Professor, and in 2012, he was the recipient of the Case Medal for Excellence in Health Science Innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, well, before I say ladies and gentlemen, he's most proud, and he made this clear the last time I gave him this, that he has a son who is a graduate of the best medical school in the country, and I believe a hemoncologist. So although he didn't go to Case, he recognized the right way to go, and he got the next generation to come. Dean Stan Gerson.
Thank you, Jim. You know, we're back together, and we're back together in, while this may be the best medical school in the country, it is absolutely the best education facility in the country, and the fact that we can share it with you is phenomenal. So I'm really glad to welcome our classes of the 2s and the 7s, particularly our 50th reunion group, which is hard to imagine, but thank you all for coming and for being here. And we're proud to see your pride in being graduates of this incredible medical school, and to know that we've trained you to be such special educators and trusted advisors and practitioners around the country. And as I've been starting to travel around the country and meet many of you individually, it's really astonishing what our alums accomplish. And for those of you on live stream, because we have many people on live stream with us and will view this later, thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating with us. We hear your claps. Don't be bashful. And we're glad with your connection back to this medical school. So across the tables, we have alums, students, friends, supporters, researchers, individuals who will honor here tonight. And I'm really glad that people have made the incredible efforts to come from across the country, even from beyond. So some of you came by car from the state of Ohio. Some of you traveled on airplane. I hope you're still wearing your masks. And some of you probably came from outside the country. So who came by airplane? Just so I know that we, good, thank you. Who came from outside the country? One or two? I know Yulin Liu, who just came back from Switzerland, where he was negotiating another deal and gave an incredible talk along with Jay Short this afternoon for the Dean's Distinguished Lecture. So I also want to thank, although I toured around the room and I didn't see, but hopefully I missed, Dan and Terry Wolpa. Are they here? Do I see them? Fair enough. Okay, so I'm sorry they're not here. So, but let me remind you about Terry and Dan Wolpa, because here we are in this incredible medical education building, and Pam Davis asked Terry and Dan to lead the effort to redefine our medical education program. And they came up with the Western Reserve II program. And the Western Reserve II program shifted our organizational education program from 150, 200 students sitting in a large classroom all day long learning or trying to learn to small groups. And the small group discussion pathway and mechanism is one that my son and frankly now daughter-in-law both took. They're in their 10th, this is their 10th year reunion. I tried to get them to come from Burlington, Vermont, but they've just moved into a new house and we're just getting settled, so they couldn't be here. But what you can't see, and I hope many of you will or did see the IQ groups, is the small classrooms that are on the perimeter of this building, which is the way we teach medical students. And I really appreciate the fact that Dan and Terry worked very hard and diligently to create this new curriculum, which is the backbone of our incredible medical education. So I really want to thank them, and I'm sorry it's an absentia, but hopefully they're seeing us by the live stream. So I also want to reflect on the fact that the alumni that come represent a small portion of the many supporters that the school has. You can't maintain a school without incredible support, both philanthropic, intellectual, collegial, referrals, helping us make sure that we keep our funneling of incredible individuals who become our medical students. Most of us realize that we probably wouldn't get into this medical school today because of the great accomplishments that you all do to bring us the best and the brightest that are out there. It's also remarkable to me, and frankly I suspect remarkable to all of us less than at our 50th year reunion, how many of our 50th reunion classmates are still practicing medicine, either full-time or part-time, are influencing the next generation of medical care, even though the rest of us are still struggling with the electronic medical record. So a real congratulations, and I would ask the class of 72, if they can, to stand and be recognized. Thank you. Now, we put the class of '87 to work organizing this evening's event and the reunion committee, and they have been one of the most engaged and perhaps irreverent groups of our alumni, and as you just heard, are proud of it. So we don't want to disturb you from that effect, and know that you've had a positive effect on all of us, and we're delighted with what you do and the enthusiasm, including scholarship support for what you've done. We all recognize this is an incredibly challenging time in our society and in medicine, and I think it's fair to say that the medical profession has worked incredibly hard to make sure that we provide the best service during COVID, that we educate folks about the importance of vaccination, about health care practices, medical care practices, reproductive practices, and the like. It's become a real challenge for all of us. And in fact, and at your tables, you'll see that we've begun here at the school, which will be broadcast, a series of significant conversations to cover such topics that are hard to talk about, as reproductive rights, gun violence, opioid addiction, and even the term tribalism, to try to understand the diversity and perspectives of those that we see in our offices on a daily basis. So we take these conversations seriously, and I'm looking forward to the fall semester and the spring semester when we have an opportunity to bring that forward further. We have some truly amazing alumni to honor this evening, and I'm going to turn the podium back to our program leaders to talk about that. And our reunion leadership, Drs. Janet Cross and Fred Plesha, whom you just met, will come back to the stage and offer some remarks about their efforts. And I especially want to recognize Jim for his efforts, and Tom Abelson from the class of '76 for all of their hard work in making tonight's Alumni Awards possible. So I'd like to ask Tom, who I think is right here, to come up and remind us about their effort in the process of the nomination and for the selection of tonight's awardees. And I think I'm going to ask Janet and Fred to join Tom back up here right now. So, Tom.
Thank you. It's great to see everybody here. I was told a lot of things. I was told to introduce myself. I'm Tom Abelson, class of '76. I'm on the Medical Alumni Board. I'm the chair of the best committee on the Alumni Board, because that is the awards committee. And all I have to do is have information come in, share it with a bunch of people who have a great time on several conversations, and then have only difficult time is deciding between X and Y, not whether we have world-class physicians and PhDs who are coming out of our programs. I'm retired from clinical practice. I am doing a research project, although hopefully that ended when I submitted my paper 2 weeks ago. And I'm still teaching at Lerner, which is the medical school with the shortest name in the universe, the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine of Case Western Reserve University. And the one thing I would ask of our university is that, like some medical school, some hospital system in New York who brags all the time that they have 2 medical schools, is I'd like to see ours bragging about the fact that we have 2 medical schools. It's a big deal. And they're all underneath this one roof. So we're going to be introducing the awardees. Jim Fleming is going to join me again as well. And each award recipient will be introduced. Drs. Cross and Plesha will take turns handing over the awards. And if the recipient is present, they will speak to us for a couple of minutes. And we look forward to what I think is one of the most exciting times of the whole year.
We'll begin this award presentation with the very special Clifford Vogt, MD, Class of '34 Alumni Service Award. Since 1984, this award has been presented to the alumnus who best emulates the spirit of Dr. Vogt in an unselfish devotion and extraordinary volunteer service to the School of Medicine. This year's recipient is Dr. Janet Cross, Graduate Studies Class of 2000. Since graduating with her PhD in molecular biology and microbiology, Dr. Cross has spent most of her career at the University of Virginia, starting as a postdoc position and moving up to her current position as a Harrison Distinguished Associate Professor of Medical Education and Pathology. She led an NIH-funded cancer research lab studying the signaling pathways through which cancer cells communicate. Throughout her career, Dr. Cross has been passionate about mentoring trainees and advancing graduate education. She currently serves as the Associate Dean for Graduate and Medical Scientist programs. As a first-generation college student, Dr. Cross is driven to find ways to open up careers in science and in research, and for those who may not see a path to that future. She remains a committed mentor to students at UVA and here at the School of Medicine. She works to foster both successful graduate experiences as well as essential connections and networks that that allow trainees to be posed for success. It is these passions that she brings to her work with our Medical Alumni Board Engagement Committee, where she has organized and led a number of our networking events for our MD and PhD students. And I got to say, personally, when we picked her as chair of the engagement committee, it was mildly controversial. We'd never had a PhD lead the whole alumni medical board, which is a bit MD dominated, but she had such impeccable credentials and skills that I thought we should give her a shot, and she's outshone my expectations and our expectations. Dr. Cross, in honor of your outstanding service and devotion to our students, please accept this award. Would you like to say a few words prior to receiving your Clifford Vote Award?
Thank you. I don't have enough hands.
I'll hold it for you while you
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Fleming. So when I first heard that I'd been selected for this award, I was, of course, absolutely thrilled. And this initial reaction only deepened when I did a little research and realized that this award is chosen to recognize someone, and I'll quote Dr. Fleming, who's demonstrated unselfish devotion and extraordinary volunteer service to the CWRU School of Medicine. Wow, that's a tough act to follow. I don't necessarily see my work with the Medical Alumni Board as unselfish in any way. In fact, I feel like I have received much more than I've given. My time here as a PhD student at CWRU presented many challenges, as graduate school always does. As a first-gen college student, I often felt like I had no idea what I was doing when everybody else had it all sorted out. So I committed to do what I could to support those who chose to follow this path after me. I'm fortunate that this is a major part of what I do in my day job as the Associate Dean for the Biomedical Sciences programs at the University of Virginia School of Medicine. It's the source of energy and motivation that I bring to my work with this Medical Alumni Board as well. I think that I have gained a number of new friends along the way, including a number of the wonderful staff who are here today or who I've interacted with in other ways. I want to say a special thanks to Erin Geisel, Liz Kalfas, and Sheila Evanson over here, who are the lifeblood of these events. I also want to thank Dr. Fleming for entrusting me with his engagement committee. I hope that I've done you proud. And finally, I want to thank everyone who was involved in my selection for this award, and I'm deeply honored by this recognition, so thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, we're going to have to put this down somewhere.
I'm going to take 2 minutes for something that they didn't tell me to do, but I would like to do. And in a way, what I would suggest is that the Medical Alumni Board has won an award. We won that award about 3 years ago. And that was the opportunity to have this man to lead us. He is amazing, brilliant. He has changed many of the things we do, all for the better. And I think everyone on the board would agree with that. The next award is the Special Recognition Award presented to an individual who's made extraordinary contribution in areas not recognized by other awards. We started this award a number of years ago. This one is given posthumously to Dr. Saja Greenwood from the class of 1958. Dr. Greenwood led a life of activism in women's health. teaching as well, and in nutrition. She was an assistant clinical professor in the Department of Obstetrics, Gynecology, and Reproductive Sciences at the University of California Medical School in San Francisco. She worked at Planned Parenthood in San Francisco, where she started one of the first teen clinics in the United States, and that was in 1968, in response to the Summer of Love. She started an abortion clinic in the San Francisco Planned Parenthood immediately after the Supreme Court's 1973 decision in Roe v. Wade. She also worked for the International Planned Parenthood Federation in Singapore and in family planning in Latin America, Bangladesh, and Africa. She's the author of the book Menopause Naturally, which became a popular book for women seeking alternatives to hormone therapy, and next year she would have celebrated her 65th reunion. Unfortunately, she passed away over the summer, but we still felt it fitting for her to receive this honor.
So especially in this time when we're all adjusting to Supreme Court rulings, her passing is all the more poignant and reflects an area of interest, particularly of our medical school, our medical students, and certainly our faculty involved in reproductive activities of our clinical practices. I'd like to move on to our Distinguished Alumni Awards. These awards are one of the school's highest alumni honors and are presented in two categories: Distinguished MD, Distinguished MD PhD, or MD-related, medical-related MD PhD. The recipient of this year's Distinguished Alumni Award in the MD category is Dr. David Ransohoff from the class of 1972. So let me tell you a little bit about David, who is a remarkable individual. Dr. Ransohoff trained a few years ahead of me in college. After graduating here in medical school, he completed his internal medical residency training at Dartmouth, a fellowship in GI at the University of Chicago, and in epidemiology under the renowned clinical epidemiologists at Yale, including Dr. Alvin Feinstein, who really declared the field of clinical epidemiology in that era. He has written extensively on how to improve research methods, how to evaluate diagnostic tests, brought rigor to our use of testing in the first place, and has made seminal observations in colon cancer screening testing, the use of colonoscopy, fetal occult blood testing, sigmoidoscopy, and even recently, new molecular testing. These are complex, and all of us wonder what we do with the results when we receive them, and if you have a question, the guidelines were really David's doing. He is expert in interpreting predictive and diagnostic testing, understanding the background and spectrum in which you conduct the test biases in test results, inaccuracies, confidence intervals, and the like. So if you're not careful and you pass by him even briefly, he will let you know whether it's time for your next colonoscopy. He has interacted with us through the Early Detection Research Network of the National Cancer Institute, which does a global assessment of developing better testing for early prediction of cancer. He's involved in the new cell-free DNA testing and how to interpret that. He's given us guidance through our GI spore and other molecular markers. Dr. Ransohoff is a professor of medicine at UNC Chapel Hill. He has been the director of the Robert Wood Johnson Clinical Scholars Program, an NIH-funded K-30 faculty development program for junior faculty, and is really exquisitely known nationally for his ability to create and build careers in clinical and translational research. So David, would you please come forward and offer some advice about your distinguished career?
Well, to receive this award is especially meaningful for me because this institution is so meaningful to me, and I want to say a few words about that. I came to Case Western Reserve from Harvard, which of course had great teachers and classmates from whom I learned so much. But Case Western Reserve for me, it's taken me a while to say Case Western Reserve. When I came, it was Western Reserve. Case Western Reserve for me added a new kind of inspiration and energy. First, our class of 1972 had so many smart people, earnestly beginning to learn and to feel the responsibility of applying knowledge to solve problems, a profession. We had high expectations of each other, a culture that was energizing. Second, our teachers saw us as colleagues, not just recipients of information. For example, I talked often with Fred Robbins, our dean and a Nobel Prize winner, about many topics. I was a lowly student. Fred and my project advisor, Buzz Ford, and I drove to Columbus once to talk with state government officials about a medical manpower issue. I was a colleague as a student, powerful stuff. This culture, this tone had come from the new curriculum developed by Dr. Wern and his faculty. In small groups, a product of Dr. Wern's work, discussing a case, we were asked to formulate the problem, drawing on knowledge about an organ system, synthesizing material from different disciplines involving that system. We all know this system. Larry Weed taught us how to formulate problems by developing the problem-oriented medical record with the SOAP organization, subjective, objective assessment. That's the problem. That's where you do the problem, an assessment and plan. Never state a problem at a higher level than you understand it. If the problem is chest pain and you label it as rule out myocardial infarction, that's too narrow. You may miss the aortic aneurysm. Synthesis and problem formulating applied not only to patients and cases, but also to clinical research that I was doing. Isidore Rabi, winner of the 1944 Physics Nobel for discovering nuclear magnetic resonance, said, when he was asked, what's the secret to your success? He said, my mother. When he came home, anybody surprised? But here's what his mother said. When he came home from school every day, she didn't say, did you get the right answer? She said, did you ask a good question? Our case, it's important. It's so fundamental. Our Case Western Reserve culture more broadly included concern and action for social justice and medicine's larger responsibility. In Family Clinic, we visited patients' homes to learn about families and environments. Many of us worked with Physicians for Social Responsibility, an organization created in the early Cold War by half a dozen physicians to educate the public about medical consequences of nuclear war. After they published a research study showing that radioactive strontium-90 had replaced calcium in the baby teeth of children in St. Louis, thousands of miles to the east of where nuclear testing was done, in New Mexico, atmospheric testing was ended. That's what the physicians did. And it's not a coincidence that a founding member of PSR that won a Nobel Peace Prize was Jack Geiger, a CWRU med school graduate. I didn't know there was a Geiger Lounge until I was walking around upstairs today. He's appropriately honored and actually received one of these awards in the past. Geiger was one of my heroes for his work on social justice, including nuclear war and community health centers like Mountain Bayou in Mississippi and other places. And when Jack stayed at my house once on a visit to Cleveland, we talked almost all night, even though he had an 8 a.m. radio interview that I drove him to. I nearly dropped out of my unexpectedly exciting early career in research in the early 80s to try to follow in his footsteps, educating about nuclear war. Jack was part of CWRU culture, and as Dr. Gerson mentioned, the kinds of topics that you're going to be considering this year in the discussions, this is typical CWRU, and it's very broad and very, very important. I could go on and in gratefulness and praise more detail about CWRU and its inspiration, but there isn't time. I conclude with a thank you to the institution for its inspiration and its character that has been such a strong part of my foundation and my gratifying career in medicine. Thank you for that foundation and for this honor.
The second recipient of a Distinguished Alumni Award in the MD category is Dr. Scott Weiss in the class of 1972. As the immediate past scientific director of the Massachusetts General Brigham Personalized Medicine Program, Dr. Weiss developed core laboratories to serve their investigative community. He is a professor of medicine at Harvard, which I guess is in the east, but frequently looks west to see which direction to go. And the associate director of the Channing Division of Network Medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital. He has been funded by the NIH for the past 45 years and has been the primary investigator on over 50 NIH grants, which I guess is why I'm not talking about what he does when he's not working. Dr. Weiss has collaborated with a variety of investigators on cooperative studies and has served as an administrative capacity for a variety of genetic epidemiologic programs. He's the co-principal investigator of the only training program in the clinical and genetic epidemiology of lung diseases. He has trained a total of 51 investigators. 13 of these trainees have reached the rank of professor. 5 are currently division chiefs, and most remain in academic medicine. He is currently ranked in the top 0.01% in the world in terms of most cited investigators in 2022. Dr. Weiss, in recognition of your distinguished career, please give us a few words.
Well, first I'd like to thank the committee and the school for selecting me for this award. When we, the class of 72, arrived in Cleveland in September of 1968, the Cuyahoga River was on fire. The National Guard had rocket launchers right out here on Euclid Avenue. And if you opened the window in the library, you'd have about this much particulate air pollution over all of the benches in the library. So just by all those measures, we're making progress. Today, I sat with my classmates in a circle exercise where people had an opportunity to talk about what was most meaningful to them about a career in medicine. And I am so incredibly proud to be a member of this class, to know these people, to bear witness to what they've done over the past 50 years in medicine. It's truly remarkable. And as David said, this is a very special school. My dad, who was an academic physician, happened to be a close friend of Jack Coy, who was the dean of students when we were in medical school. And I've always thought that nepotism played a little bit of a role in my getting into medical school, but everything after that, I take full responsibility myself. Fred Robbins, as David mentioned, this story about his winning the Nobel Prize for culturing polio, of being the first people to culture polio, is an incredible story, but very down-to-earth guy, incredibly a kind man. In the 50s, this school drew its faculty primarily from 2 medical schools. the second and fourth medical service, the Harvard service of the Boston City Hospital, where I went and trained as an intern, and Columbia. And the faculty treated us as if we were colleagues. There was no hazing. They didn't abuse us on rounds. We were their colleagues. We were their collaborators. And as George Gabuzda, who was the famous hepatologist at Metro, said to me, he said, at graduation, he said to me, "Scott, don't embarrass us." So I went back to Boston, and hopefully I didn't embarrass him. A very, very, very special place. And we didn't have a building like this, so, you know, you can thank Dr. Stoller for building this, but it's just an incredible experience to be a student here. And I'm so proud of my classmates and everything they've accomplished, and really humbled by the opportunity to be here and to receive this award. So thank you very much.
Okay, moving forward. The recipient of the first 2022 Distinguished Alumni Award in the PhD and MD PhD category is Dr. Alexander Tsai, Graduate Studies Class of 2004 and Med Class of 2006. Dr. Tsai is a board-certified psychiatrist at the Massachusetts General Hospital and Associate Professor of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. His research focuses on understanding how large-scale social pathogens such as stigma, discrimination, and structural violence affect the distribution of mental health outcomes. A secondary focus of his research has been to discern how social policy can be used to address social determinants and shift the distribution of mental health outcomes to protect the most vulnerable. Prior to joining the faculty at Mass General, he completed a postdoctoral research fellowship in population health science through the Robert Wood Johnson Health and Society Scholars Program at Harvard University. And he did his residency training in general adult psychiatry at the University of California at San Francisco. Dr. Tsai was elected to the American Society for Clinical Investigation in 2021, and he became a Distinguished Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association this year. Dr. Tsai, in recognition of your distinguished career, please come up to accept your award and say a few remarks.
I'm not really sure why I'm here. It's not like I was the first black female board-certified neurosurgeon like Deborah Hyde was 5 years ago when y'all gave her this award. My father was a physician. My mother was a nurse, and so they were my inspiration to go into medicine. And you know, we didn't have to. We struggled against some forms of racism, but nothing like I imagine Dr. Hyde went through. And I'm not a Bruce Walker, who, as far as I remember, was the last Mass General kind of physician to receive this award. He, I think, had $100 million to his name from the Reagan family right before he got this award, and then they just re-upped and gave him another $200 million a couple years ago. So I am actually at a bit of a loss as to understand why I'm here. I actually asked one of my mentors to nominate me for an award. I think it was 2 years ago, but it was something way less important than this one. It was like the early career something or other award. I didn't get it. My friend's younger brother, Andrew Ibrahim, got it. He was much more deserving than I was. I didn't even know he went to medical school. At the time, I just known him as Vic's younger brother. But everything that they read sounds familiar, and it's not inaccurate. So, I'm just grateful to be here. I'm grateful to my parents for inspiring me to go into medical school. I'm grateful to my wife and my son for making this possible. And I'm also grateful to the case faculty who were incredibly formative in my experience as a physician. I don't think I saw any of them here, but they would be Ash Siegel, Randy Siebel, the late Leona Cutler, and Kathy Cole Kelly. So thank you very much.
Dr. Tsai, I think maybe we should have an award next year for humility. But I can tell you, Dr. Tsai, that you were nominated, and when we read the group of people that work with me on all these awards, there was no question. The recipient of the second Distinguished Alumni Award in the MD PhD category is Dr. Lawrence Skip Brass, Graduate Studies class of 75 and the Medical School class of 77. Dr. Brass is a graduate of Harvard College in the MD PhD program here at Case Western Reserve. After residency in internal medicine at University Hospitals, he became a fellow in hematology oncology at the University of Pennsylvania, where he is currently professor of medicine and professor of systems pharmacology and translational therapeutics. He has led the NHLBI-funded hematology research training program since 1994 and directed Penn's medical scientist training program since 1998. He's also been active on the national level in the development of training programs for physician scientists and has served as president of the National Association of MD PhD programs. As a practicing hematologist, his research and clinical interests are in hemostasis and thrombosis, and he's been elected to the American Society of Clinical Investigation and the Association of American Physicians, and has received numerous prestigious awards for his research, for his care, and for teaching. Unfortunately, he's not able to be with us this evening, but he did send a video.
Hi, everybody. My name is Skip Brass, and it's a pleasure to be able to accept the honor that many of you have voted for me. I look back on my time at Case Western Reserve with a great deal of happiness and some degree of nostalgia. I was in Cleveland at Case for most of the 1970s while I went through the MD PhD program in biochemistry and then stayed on to do a residency in internal medicine. It was a great experience. Case Western Reserve lives in my heart as one of the finest places academically around the United States. And it's been a pleasure to be able to serve on advisory committees and to continue to be involved with alumni of Case Western Reserve, including some of my best friends. I was an MD PhD student back in the 1970s, and although my career has mostly been as a physician scientist, I've had the pleasure since then of being heavily involved at the national level and at my home institution, the University of Pennsylvania, with guiding MD PhD students in the design and development of MD PhD programs. So I'll leave you with the thought from all of that, that being a physician scientist turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful career that I'm still enjoying. And I hope that many of you, when you think back on your time at Case, will be at least as happy as I was being there. And with that, I'll thank you again for voting me this honor. It really is a great privilege, and my only regret is that I can't be there with you in person.
Next up is the Early Career Leadership Award. It's presented to the alumni who have graduated in the last 15 years and have made extraordinary contributions in the areas including community service, clinical or research expertise, mentoring, social or civic engagement, or other notable accomplishments. The 2022 recipient is Apsara Malaku, Graduate Studies, class of 2013. Apsara is a public health practitioner with a specialized focus in health equity and social justice. This includes adolescent health and youth development and community-based public health programming, implementation, and evaluation. She received her Master of Medical Anthropology and Master of Public Health from Case Western Reserve University. She serves as Assistant Director of Training and Communications for the University of Chicago Center for Health and Social Sciences, also known as CHESS. In this role, she supports advancing training, research, and outreach at the intersection of health economics and public policy. Prior to joining CHESS, Apsara was Program Manager for the University of Chicago Center for Global Health, where she directed its long-term strategy, developed numerous education programs and initiatives, and worked closely with various stakeholders to identify areas of research that have potential for interdisciplinary inquiry and collaboration in global health. Apsara, for all your contributions and accomplishments, and in recognition of your early career accomplishments, please come forward to accept this award.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, the Medical Alumni Board, for this immense honor. I am so proud to be an alum of Case Western Reserve's Master of Public Health program, which is housed in the School of Medicine. As a public health practitioner, I often consider how poverty and ill health are inextricably linked and how socioeconomic status is one of the most powerful predictors of disease. My deep commitment to health equity and justice, both in my professional and personal life, really started here and was fostered by the wonderful faculty in the MPH program and the School of Medicine. I'd like to especially thank Dr. Christina Knight, who's not here tonight. She was my practicum and thesis advisor and mentor, and she's actually now the Associate Director of the MPH program. I'm joined today by my amazing family who instilled in me a deep appreciation for learning, and most importantly, the value of doing meaningful and impactful work for the betterment of our society at large. This award and any success I will ever achieve is really a testament to their unflagging love and support. I love you all. Lastly, I'd like to thank and acknowledge my lovely husband and our sweet 10-month-old baby boy who is up way past his bedtime, my sweetheart, who both inspire and motivate me every day. Who would we be building this better world for if not for our son and the next generation? So thank you so much for this incredible honor, and congratulations to all the other awardees. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Am I next? I'm next? I'm next. Each year, the American Alumni Board honors an individual who isn't an alumnus, so we use the term honorary alumnus, as part of our annual awards program. This year, it's bestowed upon someone who didn't graduate from the School of Medicine but has spent a distinguished career here at the university and at our medical school, and I am delighted to honor Dr. Sandy Markowitz as our 2022 honorary alumnus. Dr. Markowitz is an oncologist and a cancer researcher whose lab has contributed fundamental advances in the genetics of gastrointestinal cancers and the invention of new technologies designed for early detection of both esophageal and colon cancer, and has drifted into emergency medicine and regenerative medicine. Now, Sandy and I crossed paths in quantum mechanics as undergraduates. And his outperformance compared to mine convinced me to pursue a career in medicine and not physics. After Harvard, he went on to the University of Chicago for his MD, PhD, and then to the NCI, where he worked with John Minna on lung cancer, and then worked with Bert Vogelstein, who was at Johns Hopkins. And with Bert, he defined the fact that P53 is a tumor suppressor gene, a remarkable observation at the time that he made it, and one that has fundamentally changed our appreciation of cancer genes. After Nate Berger, whom we'll hear about next, recruited Jim Wilson to study colon cancer, he recruited Sandy Markowitz here to study colon cancer. And I remember saying to Nate, "You think Sandy's going to come?" And Nate said, "He's coming, he just doesn't know it yet." Perseverance. Sandy is the consummate academic innovator, always a few steps ahead of his peers. His seminal work in colon cancer led to insight on the progression and drug resistance of that disease, and also, as I mentioned, in early detection. And those have not been isolated observations in a laboratory. His key data allowed Exact Sciences to create the Cologuard test, which I hope some of you have access to. And he's been very active in the Early Detection Research Network, sponsored by the National Institutes of Health and the National Cancer Institute, as well as SPORES that he's had now for a long time, studying GI cancers. His recent work has translated into discoveries in two biotechnology companies, one Rodeo Therapeutics, which was recently acquired by Amgen, studying regenerative medicine, and a second called Lucid Diagnostics, which is an early test for esophageal cancer, now approved across the country for use. He's an alumnus of the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, principal investigator, as I said, of a number of grants, including a Distinguished Investigator Award from the National Cancer Institute. And he has been elected as a distinguished university professor here. Now, Sandy couldn't be with us tonight, had another obligation, but I believe that he sent us a video which we'll hear right now. Thank you.
I want to sincerely thank the Case School of Medicine medical alumni for this most meaningful honor of being selected as the Honorary Alumni of the Year awardee. 35 years ago, my wife Susie and I moved to Cleveland for me to join the faculty of the Case School of Medicine. And for 35 years, I've been slowly receiving a Case education. Now that I have this honorary alumni designation, we finally made it official. There's a lovely quote that comes down to us from Isaac Newton, who said that if he'd been able to see far, it was by standing on the shoulders of giants. For those of us who are more likely to be mistaken for a Fig Newton than an Isaac Newton, those giants have had to be tall indeed, and no institution has provided me more giants to stand on than Case. From Nate Berger and Al Mahmood, who recruited me, to the colleagues, collaborators, and students who've nurtured my career and all of my successes, I've been surrounded by giants constantly. One of the most important of these giants has been my patients. One of my first patients 35 years ago was a 33-year-old accountant with colon cancer and a family history of 3 generations of that disease. That diagnosed Lynch syndrome. We were able to be part of a national team that showed that the cause of Lynch syndrome in my patient was an inherited defect in DNA repair. Our team here in Cleveland was then able to show that the loss of DNA repair acted like a guided missile to disable a crucial growth suppressive pathway mediated by TGF-beta, and that was the connection to developing colon cancer. We found this same inactivation of TGF-beta was present in many other patients with colon cancer, but without Lynch syndrome, and were able to show that in those patients, the DNA repair was again inactivated, but not by inheritance, but rather by methylation and silencing of the DNA repair genes. We developed a test to detect this DNA methylation event, and that test, still used at university hospitals and at Mayo Clinic and other hospitals, provides a way to distinguish patients with familial colon cancer from those in whom it's sporadic. More generally, we showed that one could use DNA methylation to detect any colon cancer by showing you could detect it in the stools of colon cancer patients. And the test we developed together with LabCorp and with Exact Sciences was brought forward as Cologuard and was the predecessor of a now more familiar test, Colosure. More recently, we've developed a similar test based on DNA methylation to allow for early detection of esophageal cancers and their precursors of Barrett's esophagus. And this test is now available for patients as EsoGuard. We've also been able to develop a drug that can turn off a limb of that TGF-beta growth suppressive pathway and show that in mice, this approach can heal diseased tissue, including the colon of mice with colitis and the lungs of mice with pulmonary fibrosis. And that drug is now under license to Amgen for trials to bring it forward for testing in human patients. Receiving this award now makes me pause to reflect and to pay tribute to a university that for 35 years has enabled me to make each of these advances and has helped me to advance my mission of helping patients. The Case School of Medicine has been my home, my friends, and my academic family. In the passage of time, I've seen those who were once my students now mature, achieve, and indeed become the physician into whose hands I now entrust my own health care and that of my family. This is indeed a trick of time that takes a little getting used to. There's no group of individuals that fills me with more pleasure and pride than the alumni of this great school of medicine, and there's no recognition that I will hold more dear than this award. Thank you for this lovely award and honor.
And now, for our final Alumni Award this evening, the Lifetime Achievement Award, I would like to introduce Dr. George Dubiak, professor in the School of Medicine in the Department of Physiology and Biophysics. Dr. Dubiak.
Well, it's indeed an honor to introduce Nate Berger for this Lifetime Achievement Award. When I was looking at Nate's CV and sort of the list of achievements that was sent by the School of Medicine office, all the things that you've been saying tonight are true. 250 publications, a distinguished research record in colon cancer, other types of cancers, links to public health, links to education. But I was thinking, okay, I can give this list again, as we've seen for many of the awardees tonight. Nate is an elected member of the American Society of Clinical Investigation, the American Physicians Association. All the economiums that I think have been true for many of our other awardees tonight. But I was trying to think, well, what could distinguish Lifetime Award? And this just happens to be Nobel Prize week, right? So we've been listening to Nobel awardees and prizes, and totally fortuitously, one of the things I do is I organize a course for first-year PhD students in the School of Medicine. And what we do is we have them read sort of the original papers of Nobel laureates, obviously in the fields of biomedical research. And this year I needed to find a replacement faculty who was going to lead the discussion of the 2006 Nobel Prize. It was in chemistry, but it was for very biomedically relevant research. Roger Kornberg, some of you may certainly be familiar with his research, structural biology of how DNA is made into RNA. So when as I was trying to think of how to approach faculty so I could get them twist their arm to facilitate this group of PhD students, I said, well, I really should sort of refamiliarize myself with Dr. Kornberg's work. And so you read some of his science, but also what I really wanted to read is the comments of his colleagues. He's spent his entire career at Stanford University School of Medicine. And one of the sort of these, descriptions of him as an investigator, they used the term institutionalist, that Dr. Kornberg is an institutionalist, because in addition to his incredible scientific accomplishments, he had really contributed to Stanford University's institutional profile in many, many ways. And as I saw that word, I thought, this is Nate Berger, an institutionalist. So 1983, 84, he moves from Washington University to Case Western Reserve University, becomes the inaugural director of the Case, what is now the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. 87 to 1995. 1995, he becomes one of his predecessors, Dr. Gerson, being the dean of the School of Medicine from 1995 to 2002. And these are institutional accomplishments. And as a new faculty, I came and I sort of had a soft spot for Nate. We're both native Philadelphians. You'll probably hear, when you hear him talk, you'll kind of hear some of the intonations. He went to Temple, I went to St. Joe's. There's the Big Five in Philadelphia, some of you know about. He also came from Philadelphia at some point after training. But as Nate was putting the Cancer Center together, he really wanted to create a really big tent, not just for MD scientists, physician scientists, but PhD scientists who weren't even working in any areas of cancer. And he had that foresight to see that if you want to create centers, you have to have a very, very big tent. So institutionalist, sort of what he did first. And he was the dean of the medical school. And of course, you know what deans do as medical schools. They have to, basically, host events like this, build departments, get money to build buildings like this. Nate did all of that as dean of the School of Medicine. But the other things he did, he and Susie would host parties for medical students, faculty who were teaching the medical students at their home, and basically created a community. And we've heard, some of our awardees are, they've emphasized community work. So as an institutionalist, he basically, forged these bonds between students and faculty and staff. You would think, after a dean of medical school, what else are you going to do? 2002, Nate becomes the basically inaugural and still current director of the Case Center for Science, Policy, Health, and Policy. So three of the things that we've been hearing about today: science, medical health care, but also policy. And he's continued in that over the last now 21 years. But I would say his foremost institutional, at least from my perspective, contribution to Case Western Reserve and the School of Medicine is what he's been doing for about the last now 10 years, which is organizing and cajoling faculty to participate in a summer undergraduate high school research opportunity, scientific enrichment and opportunities. And he's devoted his life to this. And I just want to return again to that sort of little vignette I had about Nobel Prize winners. As I was making telephone calls to ask faculty, say, hey, could you help in teaching this section? I remember that the reason I was doing that is because Nate, every March, April, May, will be contacting faculty, not by email, not by a letter, but by a direct telephone call saying, hey, can you take a medical student? Can you take a high school student? Can you take two? And this is what makes an institutionalist, and I think really gives him why we want to give a lifetime award. Nate, I hope you can be here right now. Okay.
want this in front?
I don't know. Give me a second. It's not as bad as it looks. Just hold it. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm really honored and humbled to be selected for this Lifetime Achievement Award by the Alumni Association. So thank you from the bottom of my heart to the CWRU, Case Western Reserve University, in case you didn't know it, School of Medicine Alumni Association for this recognition. I want to thank you to my friends and my family for their encouragement, for their stimulation, and for all their support. Special thanks to my wife, Susie, for her support, and also for being my scientific collaborator and socio-political advisor. You can't imagine how wonderful it is to have your spouse sleeping next to you and at 2 o'clock in the morning to turn over and have pillow talk about the next day's experiment. And after you're finished with, and she says she wants to go to sleep, I say, and by the way, we're having 100 medical students over for dinner on Friday night, so make sure you figure out what to do. I want to thank all the students and all the fellows and all the colleagues and collaborators and mentors that I've had here at Case. All of the achievements that I'm being recognized for are only possible because of all of you and because of so many of you here on the stage. So thank you all for earning this very special award for me. You know, I'm really thankful and proud of many of our accomplishments. As a cancer researcher, we were involved in poly-ADP ribose and DNA repair, and some of our work, and with the help of some of the people that you've already heard about tonight, we contributed to the development of Parp Inhibitors, which are a mainstay of therapy for ovarian cancer now. It's really exciting to see so many people who, when I started as a clinical oncologist 50 years ago, were given a disease that was a death sentence, and now it's just a chronic disease that they can take one pill a day for. It's been very exciting to be a cancer researcher. When I was recruited here about almost exactly 40 years ago to become head of hematology oncology, I told Chuck Carpenter, who was the head of medicine then, probably many of you remember him, that we were not only going to do clinical work, but we were going to build research. And he said cancer at university hospitals in Case right now is a tabula rasa, a clean slate, basically. He said, do what you think is best. And we built both research and clinical medicine. It became obvious in a couple of years that we really needed to expand beyond our own division, and as Dr. Dubiak mentioned, bring in many more members, and so we needed a cancer center. And I thank Jim Block and Harry Balwell, who some of you may remember, for giving us the initial $7 million to get the cancer center started. The Cancer Center has been recognized by the government, by the National Cancer Institute. It's now the Case Comprehensive Cancer Center. And under the leadership of Dr. Gerson, the Cancer Center now brings in about, I think, over $70 million of research support a year. Is that right? And sees 7,000 new patients every year. That's an amazing return on investment from the initial $7 million. Gerson. It was also exciting being dean of the medical school and being able to improve both the education and the research opportunities for all the students. Somewhere's in here, I can't, is some of the people who really supported me. Kent Smith, where's Kent? Wave your hand. Bob Haney. Couldn't have done it without those folks in the administration, so thank you to those. But I'm most,
I'm most thankful and most proud of the progress that we've developed over the past 20 years to engage high school students from Northeast Ohio, particularly underrepresented minority students, to conduct research projects in the laboratories under the outstanding mentorship of the faculty at the School of Medicine. The goal of this program is to encourage the students to pursue careers in biomedical research and healthcare delivery to improve their own success and standards of living, and to contribute to the development of diversity in medicine and to achieve true health equity. I'm exceptionally grateful to all the donors, many of whom who are in this room, who have provided philanthropic support for this program. So thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Now that I've received this Lifetime Achievement Award, I want to let you know, and even though I had to come up here in a wheelchair, I'm not yet ready for the afterlife. In fact, I just got 2 major grants from the National Institutes of Health. I just got a 5-year grant to partially support the high school student program for the next 5 years. And I also, thank you. And I also just got another 5-year grant to fund a clinical trial of exercise and nutrition support for women over 65 who are getting chemotherapy for breast cancer. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all your help and support. You know, I got an email from Tom Abelson, is Tom here? Anyway, telling me that I was receiving this award. And I was reading through my email a couple of weeks ago when I was simultaneously watching the PBS series on the Holocaust. I don't know how many of you watched that, but I was so thankful when I was watching that my parents and my grandparents who lived in Eastern Europe and saw the anti-Semitism and what was coming with the Holocaust, got out of Europe and Russia just in time to avoid that. And I'm thankful that my brothers and I were born in this country and able to go to medical school. My brother actually got his MD, PhD here at Case Western Reserve University. And I hear my parents and my tradition telling me that at a time like this, there's a very simple but very important prayer for a special occasion like this that I have to recite. In Hebrew, it's called the Shehechianu. For those of you who know the blessing, I want you to say it with me in Hebrew, and then maybe you can all join me. I'll say it again in English. So first in Hebrew, and please, anybody who can say it, join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu Azman Hazeh. And in English, you can repeat after me if you want to. We thank you, God, for keeping us alive, for sustaining us, and enabling us to reach this day. Amen. Thank you. Thank you all. God bless you, and God bless our profession. Thanks. Oh. All right. Thank you.
Ever since I've joined this institution, Dr. Berger has been a hard act to follow. So thank you, Nate. So this has been a pretty incredible evening for the connectivity with our alumni and our alumni awards. And we missed some pictures, so we're going to capture the individuals with their award plates. And I just want to thank them all again. I'd like to reflect a little bit on Nate Berger's remarks. I began listening to Nate in December of 1982 when I was a fellow, and he interviewed me at the meeting of the American Society of Hematology in Washington, D.C. It was actually my second meeting at that society. The first one was in Boston when John Adamson, a good friend of Nate and I, chaired the session that I was giving a platform presentation to. And he lived in Seattle, and so at that time he needed to get home. So as I went up to the podium, he said, "You're going to give a really good talk. I've got to catch a plane. Goodbye." And I was in a room of 250 people, and as he went out the door, the light bulb in the slide projector went out. So that's the American Society of Hematology, and I remember that event, and I remember the conversation I had with Nate. And I also remember the first time I went into his office when I came to Cleveland, and I met with Nate first, and then I walked over to Chuck Carpenter's office, and I said to Chuck Carpenter, who was a pretty imposing individual, about 6'3", chair of medicine, and I said, "You think you can find a bigger office for Dr. Berger?" Because it was in a 10 by 10 office with books and boxes to the ceiling. So as you heard, Nate recruited me, and then Jim Wilson, and then Sandy Markowitz. Started the Cancer Center, recruited Tim Kinsella as the chief of radiation oncology, then a number of other young investigators who really created the nidus that carried this Cancer Center forward for the next 20 years. He integrated it with the clinical practice, as you heard, at university hospitals. That led to our, as Nate mentioned, exceptional designation in 2018. And his passion for education and mentoring, his attention to the community, which you've heard, especially for high school undergraduate education, is really remarkable. What he didn't tell you about the most recent 5-year renewal of his high school program, it was the best score in the country. And our administrator was worried when it went out the door to the NIH because it was half as long as it should have been. And Nate captured the review team because he knows what was important. He didn't have to write a 20-page grant because he's got it all. Now, Nate came, as you heard, from Mount Airy in Philadelphia, went to Temple, was of pretty modest means, as you heard as well. And speaking of Philadelphia, as George noted, I trained in medicine and in hematology after I left Boston for the first time in Philadelphia at University of Pennsylvania. And when I came to Cleveland, so did Tony Scarpa as the new chair of physiology biophysics, who came from Philadelphia as well. And he brought with him the young Turk that you just mentioned, George Dubiak. And just as we were crossing paths coming here to Cleveland, Skip Brass, who you heard, our MD PhD recipient, was heading to Philadelphia, and he and I actually overlapped for 2 years as hematology oncology fellows. He's been a good friend of mine since. So in academic medicine, although I will give that Nate took 6 or 7 years to figure out that he really wanted to be in Cleveland while he was at Washington University in St. Louis. So essentially, George and I, and Nate with that proviso, are lifers here at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. And I can assure you that it's a lot harder to stay at one institution than to leave and go around the country to different places. So in keeping with last year's recipient of the Case School of Medicine Medal in Excellence in Health Sciences Innovation, which went to Maria Hatzoglu, a good friend of Jay Short, who we honored this afternoon by the distinguished lecture. I'd like to reintroduce George Dubiak and explain why I would like him to be the 2022 recipient of the Case Medal for Excellence in Health Sciences Innovation. George, why don't you come on up? Now, George's brief, he doesn't know about this, so he's thinking about this. You met George briefly in his introduction of Nate, and you can see how rapturous he is as an educator. And he reflects the many recipients that have come before him, who are the School of Medicine's most accomplished faculty in transforming research, education, and care. And I think we've shown you the recipients, each of whom is quite exceptional in their own regard. But George, like Nate, believes deeply in education mentorship and the importance of medical research and merging those two together. Like those who've come before him, we talked a lot about Richard Hansen earlier today. He has an exquisite talent to teach some of the most complex aspects of biomedical pathways and research. Richard Hansen would take you through intermediate metabolism on a chalkboard and never make a chemical structure mistake. Just this past Tuesday, I had the honor of watching on Zoom George describe his great insight and with enthusiasm his own work dissecting the complex pathways of immune responses and the inflammasome. You can ask him for details later. But he has an exquisite ability to make something really complex sound simple and logical. And in his mind, I'm sure that it is. Now, he just doesn't just do research. He has been dedicated to graduate education since he came here. He's been the director of our biomedical research training program, as you heard, organizes the first year class, co-directs the MD PhD program for a dozen years, has had and is serving on more than 130 graduate student thesis research committees. He's been asked to put up incredible amount of effort for that research activity and support. As he mentioned, he was a graduate of St. John's University in Philadelphia. He forgot to tell you that he graduated summa cum laude, and as I said, came here early in his career. He was appointed professor in 1998, received the Master Teacher Award in 2008, the School of Medicine Award for Mentoring in 2017, is on the editorial board for Science since 2010, numerous NIH study sections. He's graduated 24 PhD students from his laboratory, has served on a total of 156 thesis committees, and currently sits on more than 30. His publications have been cited more than 21,000 times. His H factor, something that we use to sort of understand the impact overall of research, is 77, which surpasses more than 95% of his colleagues here. He's a member, thankfully for us, of the Comprehensive Cancer Center's Immuno-Oncology program, is a member of many of his important societies. So, George, with appreciation of that lifetime of work and dedication here at the School of Medicine, and an appreciation of 35 years of outstanding science, graduate student support, medical student support, and junior faculty support, I am delighted to have you be our 2022 Case Medal for Excellence in Health Science Innovation. Now, I get to give you this award, but you also get to say a few words.
Wow. I'm usually not at a loss for words, but now I am. Yeah, I mean, institutions are what makes us. I mean, it sounds trite, it sounds overly glib, but institutions like Case Western Reserve allow individuals who are research. I'm a basic scientist. I'm a PhD scientist, but schools of medicine embrace a Big Ten, as I noted that when I introduced the award for Dr. Berger. And I think that's the most important part of what we do and have to convey to our medical students, our graduate students, is that, what we do has to be encompassing, it has to be inclusive, and it has to always be forward-thinking. And when I think of, again, when you look at the arc of the science that you do, the contributions that you do to your institution, it almost looks like a random walk. It's like Brownian motion in many cases. But after you're out of place for, in my case, 36 years, I came around the same time as Stan just noted that he did, Sandy Markowitz did. Skip Brass was just leaving. I knew him when he was at Penn, as a young scientist. I was just finishing up at Penn. You see these networks of people, networks of interaction, networks of institutions, and I'm truly humbled and honored to accept this award. Thank you very much. Yeah.
George, I'm delighted that you're here and that we're able to do this. And somehow we got George's spouse here. I don't know how we did it, but we did. That's good. So I want to just give out a few thanks. First, I think we should give another round of applause to the medical students, both who sang and the orchestra group that we had. And my advice to them all is keep playing your instruments and keep singing, please, throughout your career. I'd also like to thank the amazing effort of the organizing group from our staff in our development and alumni office. And I'm going to dare you all to stand up, please, because we'd love to recognize you. The last couple of days have been seamless, except for the fact that none of you were able to bring a chainsaw to Fairmount and cut up the tree that fell across the street as I was trying to come in from my first 8 o'clock meeting this morning. But lightning happens, and it is Hunting Valley, so sorry for that. Okay, next is I would like to bring back Jim Fleming, and thank him for his incredible years of service, as you heard, as our Medical Alumni Board president. He has really helped transform and energize that group. And he helped us launch, as you heard, Med Connect, and a number of you are actively involved in that. And he's allowed us to take on some serious issues for our medical students around our diversity, equity, around our scholarship efforts, and he has really worked incredibly hard in his off hours as an orthopedic surgeon to help our school and help our alumni association. So thank you, Jim, for allowing me to get to know you and for all the activities that you've done. And as your last order of business, I guess you're going to get to turn over the gavel.
Yes, it's been a wonderful 3 years. I will continue to stay involved, but we have one more thing to celebrate before we close tonight's program. Our reunion classes have had another successful year of raising support for the School of Medicine, for scholarship, and et al. Dr. Cross and Dr. Pletcher, can you come forward and join us on stage? I think you have something big to show. So, Fred?
Dean Gerson, please receive $10,115,464.31.
Thank you. Is Dr. Beth Sursick here?
pass the gavel now.
Are you gonna go next, or you have something to do?
I'm supposed to pass the gavel.
Oh, the gavel.
I went out of order and then you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Come on, Beth, don't be shy. It is my pleasure to hand the gavel over for our next president of the School of Medicine Alumni Board, Dr. Beth Sursick. It's all yours. Thank you so much. If you want to say anything, you can.
This may be his one faux pas of his whole term as president, is handing this over to me. I think I would just like to say that there are a lot of bright people here, and I think perhaps we should all go home and reflect on what we heard tonight, because it's been a pretty amazing evening. So thanks.
So we're going to organize ourselves for a second, and those of you who still have something to drink, I hope you all do. We're going to toast the amount raised for the School of Medicine, and I especially want to toast both all of your involvement for being here, the pride that you bring back to this school and into your lives by being members of our Alumni Association. So thank you. We're all set. So toast and cheers and thank you. Cheers. Thank you. And now I think we're set, all right? And I think that closes our formal occasions, and please allow yourselves to mingle and enjoy the rest of the evening, and thank you.